Introduction. For long, the continent of Africa was known as the Dark Continent. It remained unknown to the outside world as late as the 19th century. The continent of Africa has a difficult landscape which made it difficult to explore the continent. To the north lies the vast desert of Sahara and towards south the Kalahari Desert. The fast-flowing rivers with numerous rapids and waterfalls make navigation almost impossible. The dense equatorial forests are also a hindrance as the land is swampy with dense undergrowth, wild animals and insects. The climate of Africa also proved an obstacle for the explorers. The almost straight coastline without indentations did not provide any harbors for the anchorage of ships. The plateaus near the extremely narrow coastal plains have steep slopes. The efforts of David Livingstone, Morton Stanley, and Mungo Park have the credit of opening Africa to the outside world in the 19th century. Introduction. For long, the continent of Africa was known as the Dark Continent. It remained unknown to the outside world as late as the 19th century. The continent of Africa has a difficult landscape which made it difficult to explore the continent. To the north lies the vast desert of Sahara and towards south the Kalahari Desert. The fast-flowing rivers with numerous rapids and waterfalls make navigation almost impossible. The dense equatorial forests are also a hindrance as the land is swampy with dense undergrowth, wild animals and insects. The climate of Africa also proved an obstacle for the explorers. The almost straight coastline without indentations did not provide any harbors for the anchorage of ships. The plateaus near the extremely narrow coastal plains have steep slopes. The efforts of David Livingstone, Morton Stanley, and Mungo Park have the credit of opening Africa to the outside world in the 19th century. Boundaries. Political divisions. The British, Germans, French and Belgians partitioned Africa among themselves in the last quarter of the 19th century. For a long period of time, they ruled over various parts of Africa. Most of the African nations have gained independence from the colonial rule in the last half of century. Presently, Africa has 54 independent countries, 9 territories, and 3 states with limited recognition. Physical features. Africa may be called a plateau continent. The entire continent is made of several large and small plateaus which are volcanic in origin and are formed of hard rocks. These plateaus stretch from Sahara in the north to South Africa and from Guinea coast in the west to Somalia in the east. The plateaus are steep-sided and generally higher in altitude towards the southern and eastern parts of Africa. The Ethiopian Highland that lies on the eastern coast is the highest plateau of Africa. Towards the northwest of the continent lie the Atlas Mountains. They are the young fold mountains and belong to the same class as the Rocky Mountains of North America, Andes of South America, and the Himalayas in Asia. Another range that lies towards the extreme southeastern edge of the African mainland is the Drakensberg Range. It is the steep sloping edge of the plateau. The important mountain peaks that lie in Africa are Mount Kilimanjaro, 5,963 meters above sea level, and Mount Kenya, 5,163 meters. Mount Kilimanjaro, located near the equator, is the highest peak of Africa. It is volcanic in origin and has snow-capped peaks. The Sahara Desert in the north and the Kalahari and the Namib deserts in the south together account for almost one-third area of the continent. The Sahara is the largest desert in the world. The Libyan Desert to the west of River Nile is a part of Great Sahara Desert. The plains which cover a very negligible area of the continent lie towards the northern and western parts of the continent. The coastal plains are extremely narrow as they are bordered by the steep-sided plateaus that rise abruptly towards the continental edges of this continent. A significant feature that forms a part of the continent is the Great Rift Valley. It lies in the eastern part of Africa and extends from River Zambezi in Mozambique to Dead Sea in Asia. It crosses from Africa to Asia through the Gulf of Suez and the Gulf of Aqaba. The rift valleys are formed as a result of the process of faulting. When the Earth's movement takes place, cracking and breaking of the rock occurs due to tensional and compressional forces, and a block of land slides down between two raised land masses. This forms a valley with steep sides which is called the Rift Valley. The two raised land masses on either side are the block mountains. These rift valleys may get occupied by several lakes or even rivers. In Africa, the lakes that lie in the Rift Valley are Lake Malawi, Lake Nyasa, Lake Rukwa, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Kivu, Lake Edward, Lake Albert, and Lake Turkana. Lake Victoria, the largest lake of Africa and source of River Nile, lies between the two arms of the Rift Valley. Among the other lakes of Africa, Lake Chad is the biggest saltwater lake. Lake Nasser is an artificial lake behind Aswan Dam on the River Nile. Africa is the land of many fast-flowing rivers. River Nile is the longest river in the world. It flows from Lake Victoria to the Mediterranean Sea. River Zaire, also known as River Congo, carries the largest volume of water among the African rivers. It flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Other rivers include River Niger, which flows from the Gulf of Guinea, Atlantic Ocean, River Orange that also joins the Atlantic Ocean, and the River Zambezi, which flows into the Indian Ocean. There are several waterfalls on these African rivers. The Victoria Falls on River Zambezi, also known as the Iguacu Falls, are the highest waterfalls in the world. The Stanley Falls are located on River Zaire. Other waterfalls are the Livingstone and Inga Falls. Both lie on River Zaire. Fact: there are three main forces that drive deformation within the Earth. Compressional forces cause a rock to shorten. Tensional forces cause a rock to elongate or pull apart. Shear forces cause rocks to slip past each other.